Hey, America, when are you going to get sick of treason? It's everywhere. It's all around you. It's your House, it's your Senate, it's your president, it's your governor, it's your state house, your state assembly. It's your Republicans, it's your Democrats. It's every federal agency, every state agency. They all seek your subjugation. They all seek your enslavement. They all seek your money. They'll bleed you dry as long as they can retain their position of authority and power, and they are drunk with the heart blood of America. Drunken pirates. That's what they are. Drunken pirates. Every one of them. There's good people in government. Where? Show them to me. Show me. Show me somebody who says, you know what? I'm in government, and I'm going to expose it for what it is. Show me somebody. They won't. You know why? Because it's against their own personal best interest. They will lose their job, and therefore their power. Their jobs already pay them, 140% of what you make. I mean, I read you off the value of what these people make at the VA in Phoenix. $350,000, $370,000, $325,000 a year. What kind of an administrator makes $325,000 plus a year? What kind of paper-pushing, pencil-necked geek makes $325,000 a year? Who? What administrator in any private hospital makes that kind of money? Come on, name me a hospital. What kind of hospital pays their administrators that kind of money while those administrators are committing an act of criminality against the patients that they have an obligation to take care of? A human obligation. The heck with legal. Name me a president who says, our future rests on the success of dream kids. Our future rests on the success of people brought to the United States illegally as children who qualify for citizenship. If only Congress had passed the DREAM Act. But they wouldn't, so I did it myself, unilaterally, against my oath, against the orders of the Constitution, against every aspect, every element of power that has been seated in this position. Quote, about 30 to 40% of the kids in this school, by the way, are dream kids. You wouldn't know it by looking at them because they are as American as apple pie. But every single one of these kids, you might not be able to tell the difference, but a whole bunch of them, they're worried about whether or not they're going to be able to finance their college education of their immigrant status. That's his quote, not me. The grammar's his. They're worried about whether, in fact, this country that they love so deeply loves them back and understands that our future rests on their success. Why wouldn't we want to give them that certainty that you are part of the fabric of this nation? We're counting on you, and we're going to make sure you succeed. Why wouldn't we want to do that? Well, sir, we have an obligation to the people that actually elected you first and foremost. You have an obligation to those people who live here and were born here, have created and made this fabric that you're speaking of. They were the ones whose blood and fiber and tenon and sinew make up the fabric. The 3.5 million Americans who died in wars put on by scum like you Not because it was a right thing to do, but because it was a way in which to, what, generate revenue for your pals and your cronies? Oh, come on, folks. Don't fall for the World War I, World War II synopsis that you've been given in high school. World War I, we were entered into, the Lusitania was directly driven with intent into an ambush so that they could generate enough anger on the part of sleepy Americans to say, let's go to war. And they knew about Pearl Harbor weeks in advance. In fact, why else would they have moved 4/5 of the fleet away? The documentation's out there. Go look it up for yourself. You don't need me to do it. I'm just reminding you of that which you already know. The Gulf of Tonkin. Bay of Pigs. How about Korea, where we barred the general from crossing over the river to actually attack the enemy? When we knew that the enemy wasn't really North Korea, they couldn't wipe their own rear ends if we'd handed them toilet paper. China was the enemy. We were fighting directly against Chinese special forces. The first Gulf War, to protect the petrodollar and the kingdoms of OPEC. You can thank George Bush Sr. for that one. Then the second Gulf War with his boy, to make sure that our vice president, Dick Cheney, could make sure that Halliburton got their piece, and their due. That and the rest of the military-industrial complex, while we exported democracy. Export democracy? First of all, we're not a democracy. We're a republic. Or have you forgotten? Secondly, we don't export anything because, frankly, we don't practice what we preach and we don't believe it. We're like the preacher who's standing up there touting living a sinless life, who's sleeping with 6 women in the congregation and drinking hard on a Friday night all the way right through to Sunday morning. It's a hypocritical position to take. We tout how wonderful democracy is, the vote of the people. And yet we have a duopoly system here in our own nation that shows us that there is no real choice. It's the illusion of choice. They're not as American as apple pie because their allegiance doesn't lie here. It's not our fault that they came here. In some cases, if they're children, it's not our fault or their fault that they're here either. But that doesn't mean that we have to destroy our own nation for something which was neither their fault nor ours. We're not obligated to commit suicide. Where in the pact does it say that? Show me, please. Pull it up by chapter and verse. Show me the pact where it says, in order to be a good human being, you have to commit suicide. You have to sacrifice yourself on the altar of altruism, self-debasing, that you're not allowed to look out for your own first interest. Well, if you can't look out for your own first interest, then how are you ever supposed to have the capability, the resources, and the wherewithal to help those around you? I mean, if all of us are doing nothing but groveling and sacrificing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, how is anyone supposed to get high enough to be able to say, hold on a minute, neighbor, I've got enough strength and capability and wherewithal that I can lend some to you? But you see, what you hear from your government, what you hear from the media, when they give you and feed you this message of altruism, is like a parent who would put poison in their child's baby food jar and then spoon it into their mouth. The same parent who would never taste it themselves. if you all believe so much in altruism, then altruistically vacate the office. You want to do the whole nation and the world and the country a favor? Stop being an inept, treasonous traitor. Stop creating strife and problems. Vacate the office. Resign. That would be and show us that you actually live and practice what you preach. Joe, Barack, Eric, Jay, Chuck, resign, the lot of you. Show us that you truly believe in the altruism you advocate for us to show. Sacrifice yourselves. Let's see that first. Don't send troops over there, Barack. I want to see you kid up. Come on, throw on a bulletproof vest and go running over there into Kirkuk and clean those monsters out. You don't have the guts. You're a pathetic, blood-sucking vampire, the lot of you. It's a lot easier to sit back here at home and send young men to their deaths. It's a lot easier to sit back here at home and say, hey, come on up. You're all welcome. What kind of man, what kind of woman, what kind of person with a family and children of their own would say to total strangers, the door's open, you may have anything in this premise that you so choose. In fact, my family and I, if you demand it, we'll even move out and we'll sleep out in the shed in the back so that you all have a place to rest your heads. You may eat anything you want. Here's our bank account number. Here's our ATM card. Here's the keys to the car. All the food we've stored is down in the basement. Help yourselves. Who would do that? Who would sacrifice themselves on that altruistic altar? Who? Who would think that's valuable? Where is the logic? Where's the reason? Where's the justification? Where's the sense of self-preservation? That is a human trait. How is it that 12-year-old girl stabbed 19 times by two of her girlfriends over that Slender Man incident? Stabbed 19 times. And yet, her desire to live was so strong, she crawled. She crawled to the street with 19 holes bleeding in her to gain help. That's called the will to survive. The only people who don't have a will to survive have either lost it in some way, shape, or form, or have become so despairing that they are willing to terminate and take themselves out of the mix. And those people are helpless and, frankly, hopeless. Being altruistic and saying, here, it's free reign, take anything you choose. And when I come home from work on Friday, I'll have my check and I'll cash it and I'll distribute that amongst you. Total strangers. And your child walks up and says, but Daddy, you gave away all the food. We don't have anything to eat. I know, but it's our duty as humanitarians. We should go hungry so that others may eat. I know, Daddy, but this is the 4th day we haven't eaten. And that's okay, son. Tomorrow you'll be hungrier. What father would do that? What man of rational intelligence would do that? What nation would do that? What nation would say, it's really not an obligation of the president to represent the people of his own nation. It's the obligation of a president to represent people of foreign nations that he's never even visited. El Salvador, Guatemala, Brazil, Venezuela, Argentina, Peru, Chile. Border Patrol knows what's going on. They're saying that the flood of immigrants is orchestrated. It's a willful, chosen path of humanitarian crisis. To what end? Well, the president sits there in luxury. He's eating lobster tails tonight. He's working out at the gym. He's jumping on Air Force One, heading off to a fancy dinner where there's a nice, perfect filet mignon. But you should sacrifice yourself. You should commit the ultimate sacrifice for your fellow man. At my direction. Would someone please top off my wine glass? I'm a little short today. Please pass the caviar. You see, only liars and tyrants and traitors act like that. When you have border agents who come out, and they can only come out because they're former, and they say this is not a humanitarian crisis, it is a predictable, orchestrated, and contrived assault on the compassionate side of Americans by their political leaders who knowingly put minor illegal alien children at risk for purely political purposes. They are nothing more to them, to you, Barack, to you, Joe, to you, Val. Just collateral damage. See, it's a sea of faces, and they're all too far away for you to recognize the cherubic face of that little boy or that little girl. There's no love in you. There is only evil. There's no spirit in you. That's been crushed by the evil. There is only a yearning, a gnawing hole, cloying for power. Like the drug addict who absolutely cannot take it anymore. And you have put yourself and all of us on this path of destruction. And you can't even justify it or explain it to yourself. The officers say, certainly we are not gullible enough to believe that thousands of unaccompanied minor Central American children came to America without encouragement and the assistance of the United States government. What, these little 3-year-olds wandered for 2,600 miles? I mean, wouldn't their legs their little shorty legs, wouldn't they have been worn off down and they'd be walking up on their knees now on stubs, bloody stumps? I mean, they're only 3. How did they survive the 46-day trek? What did they eat? Who wiped their little heinies? Who changed their diapers? It's plain to see what's happened. It's clear. There's no doubts. This is done, orchestrated, coordinated, created, manufactured for political purposes. And political purposes that aren't worth what? These guys are such poor planners. They let 5 of the worst terrorists known on the planet go to get back one deserter and completely missed the public outcry that would ensue. They're so out of touch with reality, they just have no concept. They're isolated, insulated. They're thousands of Rapunzels living at the tops of towers, completely and totally unaware that the world is moving ahead without them down below. And if that's the case, that's called malfeasance. Then they have no right or authority to continue in power. And if I'm completely, totally, 155,000% wrong, then it's pure evil. And they are actively plotting, planning, and scheming to hurt the country they've sworn an oath to. And that's way past malfeasance. That's treason. Now, if you can find a third alternative to interject in there, which explains all this, justifies it, rationalizes it, okay, I'm listening. Email it to me, Mike@americasvoicenow.org. Because I can't wait. I can't wait to read this. It's not a mistake. It's a willful, intentional, evil act against the interests of those people which this nation believed these people had sworn an oath to. Who's guilty? Congress, Obama, Biden, every agency, every judge. Every one of them. Jay Johnson. All of them. They're all guilty. They're guilty of conspiring against those people that they owe their loyalty to. Not because they owe their or have voluntarily given their loyalty to people they don't owe it to. They're just using them as a pawn. They're no different than a murderer who picks up a weapon for expediency. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter who it belongs to. It's just useful for that moment. And that's a crime against God, humanity, and self. Our future rests on the success of dream kids, huh? No, it doesn't. Our future rests on Americans who have patiently sat here, loyally worked hard, put their own interests aside for the benefit of their countrymen, sacrificed, believed, fought, bled, and died. That's who our future belongs to. And that's who our future rests on.